My name is Charles Hardy, and my first Oral History Association meeting was Pensacola, and 30 years ago today, I believe, in 1985. And Cliff Kuhn and I came down, and the two things I remember most, and I remember very little about that meeting, the first was that there was a Halloween, it was around the time of Halloween, and there was a strip of bars, and there were people in costume going from bar to bar, many of them very drunk. So I was thinking, gee, Pensacola is a really interesting city. The other part I remember, because I remember nothing about the meeting, is going out to play volleyball on a beach with some of the senior oral history members. I think Ron Marcello was one of those, and Cliff and I. And we drove across a long causeway as the skies were darkening. But we figured, not a problem. It will blow over. And we set up the volleyball net, and we started to play when the skies really darkened. And so we foreshortened our game, and we headed back across the bridge as the wind started to blow very seriously and the water started to lap up to the very edge of the road, and we barely escaped. And then I went and visited a cousin who I hadn't seen since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And what struck me most about that visit was meeting his 2 children, who I had never seen, who kept on calling me sir. And they were maybe 9, 10, 11 years old, and I couldn't get over being addressed as sir by these very polite young Florida Panhandle children. And being a good Northerner, I told them, no, you have to stop calling me sir. You're going to call me Charlie or Uncle Charlie. So that was my first meeting. The other thing I remember very vividly about early oral history meetings was Brother Blue. And Brother Blue was, he sort of gave oral history a distinct identity, and he had a sense of who needed the praise. And Brother Blue, at the end of a session, was extravagant with his praise and very demonstrative. And at first I thought, who is this weird guy? And what is he doing? But after a while, after a number of years, one actually came to depend upon Brother Blue for his building of community and for his breaking out of the more formal academic codes. And I'm saying that we are all part of a larger unified cosmos, that he had that he can open a window for the rest of us to at least peer at. What are some other oral history memories? The other thing that I loved about oral history was the directness and the abrasiveness that could take place at some of the keynote addresses. And I'll never forget, and I think it was a writer, a highly respected woman who I believe was a journalist, who came in and decided she was going to tell us about the nature of interviewing. And I don't remember, she must have mentioned oral history, because Ron Grayley stood up and very publicly started to dress her down. And on the one hand, I was thinking, oh, you shouldn't be doing this to your speakers. This is it. And on the other hand, I said, go, Ron, go. She deserves it. Yeah, let her have it. But oral history has always been a wonderful community, just because of the diversity of the people. And because of its not just talking about embracing diversity and egalitarianism and being good to each other, because it really walked the walk. So we've just been sharing some of our other Brother Blue stories, and I do have one Brother Blue story in particular that has always stayed with me. And that is the Alaska meeting of the Oral History Association, which was one of the most interesting because I guess it was the tour bus that took us up to Denali. I think we got lost and didn't know where we were going. And I had a family friend who worked with the Fish and Wildlife Commission. So typically in an oral history meeting, I like to take one day and play hooky and simply go somewhere and do something. So Cliff Kuhn and I used to do this routinely. We would skirt out a national park or decide time for a road trip. and go do something off the map. But so I was with my family friend, and he took me into the backwoods, and we tromped off the trails, and he knew where we were. And then he took me down to some of the beautiful mountain scenes with the water between the mountains. And then we're driving back to Anchorage, and I think we both decided we needed something quick to eat. So here's this little roadside stand absolutely in the middle of nowhere along the side of the road. And we go in, and I look, and here is Brother Blue performing Shakespeare to two families sitting in the middle of this backwoods roadside food stop with nobody else there. And they're sitting there like this, and he's doing a full performance. And I thought, yeah, this is great. I saw your hand go up. Am I done?